Good morning. We're at the top of the hour, so we'll go ahead and get started with our Performance Analytics Academy. So welcome to Performance Analytics Academy, formerly known as Office Hours. Good morning, good afternoon for everybody who's attending. Welcome if this is your first time, and welcome back for a lot of the returning people that I see. Before we get into our main presentation to kick off, we have a few logistics to run through. So first of all, we want to emphasize that this session is for you. We are here for you. Please ask questions. Ask questions as we're going. We'll try to answer them. We'll follow up at the end. Our goal here is to give you some fresh ideas and practical understanding of how you can apply some of these solutions into your environment. We are recording this session. It'll be posted publicly when we're done. And again, with the Q&A, please use the Q&A feature of Zoom rather than chat, because that allows us to make sure that we do get every question answered as we're going. My name is Adam Stout. I'm an outbound product manager for the Now platform and Now Intelligence. I am your host today, and we'll try to answer some of your questions in the Q&A. Thomas Davis is presenting for us today, another outbound product manager. And we're going to see some of his wizardry, explaining some really complex topics very simply for us. If you have to drop off early, we will post this recording out onto the community, and it will be on YouTube as well. You have an opportunity to see all of our past sessions. We have more than a year and a half of sessions for you to reference. And if any of your colleagues missed it, you can send them to this recording as well. It'll get posted again either later this afternoon Pacific time or early tomorrow. And you will also get to see the schedule for the next few sessions, so you can plan accordingly. I also recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel, so that way when we do post it, you'll get it pushed for those of us who can't come every other week for our session. And we do talk about some really deep subjects in here that you don't find in other places, but there's also some great content if you're just getting started with performance analytics and reporting in Now Learning, and you can get great starter classes and some advanced classes as well about performance analytics reporting and everything else ServiceNow. Also, the knowledge labs from K20 are there. And then when we get into K21, those will be there as well. And I want to advertise too, a lot of us do other things as well with ServiceNow, not just performance analytics and reporting. So if it applies to you, there is a virtual agent academy similar to ours and a mobile academy that happen every other week. The links are here. If you search the community, you'll find them as well. Sessions similar to this, where they present you some things to think about and give you the ability to ask some questions. All right, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Thomas to talk about how we can apply performance analytics on metrics, applying two really fundamental features we have, put them together, and get even more value.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Can you see my screen?
Looks great.
All right, let me move this. This always gets in my way. There we go. Okay, so again, like Adam said, today we're going to talk about some metric information, and we'll give some information just about generally how metrics works, and then we'll go into a couple demos to kind of show you them in action, and then some questions that you have. Metrics are one of those subjects that generally generate a lot of questions, so that's good. So hopefully I can get done fast enough that we can answer as many questions as possible. So let's see here. All right, so what is a metric? A lot of you may know this already, but basically a metric is going to calculate a measurement in time, a duration, how long something takes from one particular thing to another. For an example, in an incident, when it goes from one state to another, if it goes from an assignment group to another, if it goes from one assignee to another, basically anything that's inside of that incident that we can actually grab the field of, we can determine how long it's been sitting in that particular state, or further any of those other ones. And then calculate a time for that. And then, of course, we can put it into reporting, or you can put it into performance analytics. And today we're actually going to show it in performance analytics to show what you can actually do with it. So again, the biggest thing to understand is just if you need to have a duration of something between this and that, then metrics is the way to go for that, along with some other things that we'll talk about here in a little bit as well. So with metrics, there's two important elements that you always have to think about: a definition, a metric definition, and that basically is deciding what it's going to calculate, what it's going to get that snapshot of, that duration of, and you build those out, and then you can use that further. And in order to do that, you do have to have the metric admin role in order to do that. And of course, here's a document, a ServiceNow document that'll give you even more information. But the big thing here is understanding the difference between a definition and an instance. And then an instance is when there's actually something that has been grabbed based off of the definition itself. So you would have multiple instances within a definition, multiple inside of incident if you were looking for one particular incident and it changing through the different states or, like I said, assignment groups, and you would have an instance every time that actually triggered off. So those are the two main things as it relates to what a metric is and how it works. So if metrics is not there available for you in your instance, it should be. It's generally coming, I believe, out of the box now. But if it's not, you can always go to plugins and look for that. And then you can look for all of the ones that have come. So all of these definitions themselves have been created and they're out of the box if you have the plugin installed, and they're there for you. And the easiest way to figure out whether or not they're there is to just go to the package and add that package to your definition, and you'll see if it's a metric definition or whatnot, because there are some different definitions that are out there as well. But again, if you're not seeing any of that, then go and check and make sure that the plugin has been activated, and of course that requires an admin role. So metrics use database views, and of course there are some that we have created at ServiceNow that are out of the box as well. And generally these five, in most cases, not all cases, will generally cover everything that is needed as it relates to metrics. And again, not everything, but a good majority of everything. So you can see these inside of your instance if you can, if you have the role of admin, you can see that those are out there. Again, you don't have to have the admin role to access it from reporting or anything like that. But if you actually want to see those metrics that have been created out of the box, or if someone else has created one that you need to get to from the database view level, then you would have to have admin in order to have that. But again, these are out there, and generally these will cover almost everything that's out there, but you may have to do more. But the biggest thing is to look for those before you go and decide to create something, because these will most likely work for you. So another part, which doesn't necessarily tie directly to metrics, but it's the biggest reason why it's in here is for you to also think of another avenue where you may not necessarily need to create a metric. A lot of times when someone is trying to figure out if something's being met based on a duration of time or something like that, that's really what SLAs are, service level agreements. So there are SLAs that are out there that of course come out of the box as well, but you can also create service levels. So if you also want to look at that duration and then say, okay, is that meeting a certain time limit that I have, then probably SLAs are a better direction for you to go, not necessarily thinking that you have to create a metric. So here, of course, is some documents that you can access, and you do have to have the admin role to create those. But there's also a really great former Performance Analytics Academy that was done by David, who's on our team as well, that actually shows SLAs and doing breakdown metrics or whatnot on SLAs. So I would definitely recommend that. And that's really, like I said, when you're geared towards taking a duration of time and seeing whether or not it's met based on some agreement, some SLA or whatnot, I would go and look that direction and make sure that there's not something there, or get something created there, as opposed to thinking that it automatically has to be metric. Because even though those align pretty closely, when you start looking at whether or not something is being done in a certain amount of time based on some sort of agreement, then you really want to go the SLA. And I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that in here, so you would always have that in the back of your mind whenever you're deciding to go down whatever direction that you need. So always remember the SLAs are there as well. So again, I wanted to make sure that we got to the demos quick and then had enough time for questions and answers. So at the end of the day, that is the gist of what metrics are, how they work. So let's get into some advanced sort of concepts as it relates to metrics. And today we're going to look at the average duration of assignments, and then also the average unassigned duration. So how long is something assigned, between the different levels there? And then also when something is unassigned, what is the duration of how long it's been unassigned? So that's what we're going to look at today. So for this first demo, again, this is what we're going to look at. These are the ServiceNow docs that you can access because of the different levels of this demo that I'm going to do. So every part of it has a correlation as it relates to a doc. And these, of course, are the roles that would be required to do any one of these different parts of this particular demo. So make sure that you understand that you have to have those. You may already have those. That's great, but that's important. And so our use case here, so we want to gain better insight and easily identify if there are bottlenecks in the incident process with specific assignment groups. So who has it longer, who has it shorter? Is it going? Hopefully this can help you determine whether or not it's going to the right person, the right group, the right time. And this will kind of help you because if an assignment group is sitting on it for a long time and it ends up being something that they can't do and it's got to go to somebody else, then hopefully something like this would help you figure that out. So the first thing that we got to do is we obviously have to create an indicator source. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go and create an indicator source, and we're going to connect it to the incident metric table. And that's the table that you would go to create any sort of indicator source that you need based on incident. And here we'll just we'll give this a name. And I personally, and it really is whatever you want to do. I don't like putting spaces in indicator source. It's just my thing. So I always kind of separate there with a dot. And then the other big thing is, given a description. I'm really big on descriptions. Quite often people will leave them blank, but I think it's important because that way somebody else doesn't recreate the wheel. If there's already one that's out there, then give them some help in the description, letting them know what's there so they don't have to create something new if it's unnecessary. So make sure that you definitely fill in, and hopefully you're a better typer than I am. I'm not the best typer either. So, but just give that information in the description there. So once we have that, then we'll actually go down and we'll grab our table. Again, I'm not the greatest typer. No judging on that. So we'll go down and we'll pick the incident metric table and just simply start typing in incident here, and we'll find that. And there it is right there. And then we got to put in our conditions, which basically match the description up above. So we want resolved on today. And then we also want to grab our definition, right? So this is what tells us which particular metric definition we want to use to grab our data, and we want assignment group because that's what we're going to look at is the duration of assignments. And then we also want to see when it started, right? I want to see started on or started is more than 0 hours before resolved, meaning that I don't want to look at anything that is resolved in this case or anything that is after resolved. So those are the two, the table and the list view, and that's really all it is into this particular example of setting up an indicator source for our particular metric that we're going to look at. So next, this does call for a script, and basically if you go to Performance Analytics and then find scripts, you can add in scripts, and we'll connect this script up to the incident metric table, or up to, the indicator source, which of course is housing our metric table. So just click new there, and this script is here, and you'll have that because this is a sort of a common one that you can use. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing in this script on the next slide. But here again, we'll give it a name, and then we make sure that we want to give it a description of what it's actually going to do. And this one's going to calculate the duration for the incident metric itself. And then again, we want to go to our indicator source, and that's what we're going to type in here. And there it is, and we grab that. And then we'll just go down, and we're going to add 2 or 3 fields. So we're going to add our start and our end, because that's obviously a big deal. We want to know what those are. And then also we want to add in the resolved to see what is resolved or whatnot. So you can add in as many as you need here, as many that you plan on calling in your script. You can add all of those directly here and then use them directly into your script. And then we'll scroll down here, and I'm going to go ahead and just paste that in. And And that really is all it is of creating your script. And now that script is attached to that indicator source. So let's talk about the script a little bit. So again, it's here, so you'll be able to use it if you want. So again, this is calculating the duration in hours between the two dates, right? And the dates being when the assignment group changed. That's what we're looking for. And here, the begin date, the X date is always the start of the metric incident record. So again, an instance is created when something is triggered based off of a definition, and then use the stop date for the duration calculation, which is the Y date. So the end date is from the metric instance, but if it's not there and you want to use a resolve date from the incident, it is there. You can grab that as well. And then if there is no date at all, it will use the calculation date, which is a score end date of when it was actually pulled together. So this is some good information. Again, this script is very generic, so it can also be used for open process records anywhere else that you choose to. You may have to do a little bit of configuring on it, but it is a pretty basic one, and that's what we're using that for. So next we need to generate us a indicator, again pointing to our indicator source that we had. And this is probably familiar to you. Just of course go to the navigator and do that, and we'll click new. And then we're going to add in all of this information that I have over here to the left, and we're going to put in our name and then our description, which is actually very close. I think it's the same thing as the name I decided. So, and then you want to make sure that you set all these particular settings, especially based on how you intend to look at that information in Analytics Hub, or if you decide to put it into a widget. So, do you want it to minimize or maximize? In our case here, we want minimize, and we're going to be looking at hours, and then we want a precision of 2, and we'll add that there. And then again, we're going to grab our indicator source, which is there. And then our aggregate is average, and we know it's scripted. So here's where we would add in our particular script that we created. And I think that I forgot that, and it's actually going to error out here when I submit it. And we want it to publish on the Analytics Hub. Yep, I forgot to do that. So really good thing, it's going to tell you when you forget to do that. And there is our script there. So we'll add that in, and then we will save it again, and we'll be good to go. So that is adding our indicator source and our script and setting up exactly how we want it to work. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add a breakdown mapping to an existing breakdown. So listen, if you need to create a new breakdown, then by all means create that. But again, go and search and see if something's out there. And this is a lot of demo data. That's why you see so many assignment groups here. But I know that it's going to be the first one that I have. And then basically I'm going to go in here and now I'm going to create a mapping to the incident metric table as well. So you saw that I had one to incident, I had one to incident SLA, but of course I need to do one to the metric as well. And then here it's going to be field value, which is what I'm looking at, because in that definition, that is the column, which is assignment group that we're actually looking at. And then of course, I'm just going to go ahead and add the indicator that I just created to that breakdown as well. We'll move that over and we'll save. And now we basically added a breakdown to our indicator that we're using, along with to make sure that we have the mapping for that. So now we have to collect some data. So in this example here, I'm going to create a new PA data collection job. But again, if you have an existing job, I would recommend that if it's good enough for it, if there's not too many indicators that are already in it, or if it's not pulling too much data. But if you can use something existing, I would recommend that. But I went ahead and created one here so we could go through the whole process. So of course you got to give it a name and then a description. I don't know why they don't make description mandatory. I think I'm going to put that in so everybody has to do it. And once I get finished typing here. So I'm just basically going to put here that this is used to collect data for metrics or incident metrics. And then we can start, we can add our indicator into that, and we can pull some data back. So for this example, because I want to make sure that I see a good amount of data, or at least something that I can see, I'm just going to go ahead and go back 3 months for our start. And then of course the end will be 1 day ago, which is what it already is. And then I'm going to put in system administrator because I'll save this. And then I don't need it active at this point because it's going to be on demand. But if you had something daily, which you most likely would want, then you could definitely do that. But for my case, I made it on demand. And then we save it, and then we'll be able to actually go down and we'll add in our indicator that we created again, and then we're going to execute that job. And then you can see here on the slide down at the bottom, I actually ran that job, and those are the records that I got back. So we'll move that over, and we'll go ahead and kick that job off. Simple enough. So probably something that you've done in the past, but that's how we're going to add our indicator. You actually create a job and also add the indicator. So now let's get some validation that what we did was actually right. So I'm going to go to the Analytics Hub, and I'm going to look for that indicator that I created to make sure that I have data, and just search for it by name over here. I didn't type it all out. I just gave it a little bit. It'll come back. And there it is. So we click on it. And now we can see that we actually have some data at some point in time. And of course, it'll show records. If you had a lot more records within that time frame, then it would definitely show those. And here you can see that my breakdown works as well. And if I click on one, I can now see, and I don't have that many points of time in my particular data. So you may have a lot more data coming back when you actually do yours. But again, this gives you the ability to actually look at those durations in particular assignment groups of resolved incidents where it was sitting for an abundance amount of time, or any sort of time that's above whatever threshold that you have decided is too long. So here's a good way of just looking at that and hopefully making some changes in whatever bottlenecks that are happening, and change up that process so it doesn't take as long sitting in certain assignment groups. So that, again, that's how you validate it. So the next one is, now we're just going to look at the average unassigned duration. So how long is it actually unassigned as opposed to assigned? Sitting in an assignment group, how long is it actually sitting unassigned? And again, here's some ServiceNow docs of everything that we'll be doing inside of this demo. There is an additional step in the sense of we're going to create a formula indicator and bring this particular one that we've created and also the one that we just created, bring those together, and then we'll view that on the Analytics Hub. And there are the roles that are required to do any one of those particular things that we're going to do it. And real quickly, so our use cases, we want to identify if there's an opportunity to shorten the throughput time of incidents, or an indicator is needed that tracks how long incidents are not assigned, do not have an assigned to a person, gain better insight, and easily identify if there's any bottlenecks in the incident process that we can change with specific assignment groups. So let's get into that as well. So again, everything's going to look very familiar. We're going to create another indicator source, and we will not have the same conditions in this one, but we do need to create a new one. And taking forever here. There it is. And click on new again. Actually, I'm going to use the existing one that we had because I love using insert and stay, and hopefully that's something that you use. So I'm just going to change the name up here. And then all I have to do is change one or two of the conditions and do an insert and stay, and I'm already done with my indicator source. Hopefully everyone on the call is familiar with what insert and stay is, and you're using that. Make sure that you always change the name, because it will insert another one with the same name if you do not change the name. So make sure that you do that. So here, it's resolved on today, but our definition is going to be unassigned duration per assignment group. And that is one that comes out of the box as well. It is there for you. So here we're going to get rid of just the last, we're going to, of course, change our definition to the one that we added in the description, and it's right there. And then I'm going to get rid of that last condition. I don't have concern for that. And then again, go up to the top banner, right click, insert and stay, and voila, we have our new indicator source. So very simple preview. We do have some records. Again, not a great deal of data in this particular instance that I'm using, but that's how easy it is to create the next one. And again, like I said, use the insert and stay if you're able to. So we do have another script. So we're going to go in and create us a new script for this one. This script is not as big, and this script probably is very familiar. This is one that is used quite often, and we'll add that directly into our script. And we're only going to use the start and the end fields, for this particular one. So again, you always have to name it, put a description in there. I should really learn how to type faster. And then once we get that, of course, we're going right back to the indicator source that we had before. I'm sorry, incident metric, excuse me. And then we're going to add in the start and end time. There we go. And then we simply just go down and we copy and paste in our new script, which is going to help us get the information that we're looking for. So again, this will be in the slide deck, and you can use this, copy and paste this, and use this as much as you need to. So that's going to be our script for our next one. Of course, we got to create an automated indicator as well. And just like the previous, we'll just go and we'll search for that, and we'll create a new one, and we'll name it appropriately. There we go. And this one is going to be the average unassigned duration of resolved incidents. And when we pull these two together in the formula indicator, it really does give you great information to make, have action off of and actually make some changes if necessary. So once we have that there, I'll just copy the same thing and I'll put it into my description. And then again, we want this to be minimize, and this is going to be hours as well, and our precision will be 2 as well. And then we're going to go and look for the indicator source that we created, and there it is, that second one down there. All that typing, and it had already popped up for me. There we go. And again, it's an average. Check script, and then that will be our value when nil is 0, and then we'll put in our script that we created. And there it is again. And we will select publish on the Analytics Hub, and then we'll right click at the top banner and click Save. And because we know that we're going to have a breakdown, we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll add in that same assignment group breakdown. And we'll go ahead and move that over, and we'll click Save, and then of course Update, and we've created the automated indicator that we need. So again, new indicator source, new script, create an automated indicator off of it, added in our breakdown. We don't need to do the mapping again. Remember, we did that in the previous, so we can just use that same assignment group. So again, like I was saying, now we want to actually create a formula indicator that combines both this indicator that I just created and then the indicator from the previous demo. So we'll go in here and we'll name this percentage of resolution time incidents are not assigned. And then again, for the description, we'll just put shows percentage of resolution time that incidents are not assigned to a person. And again, hopefully this will give you, some good information that you can draw action from. And again, we want this to be minimize. And then now our unit is going to be percent rather than hours. Precision is still 2. We're going to check the key. And then we're going to go down, and now we're going to add in our indicators. So we're just going to search for the first one that we created, or actually the second one that we created. We'll add that in, and for our time series, we're going to do a 7-day running average. So again, we can just start typing there. There's many different time series that you can use, but for our case, it's 7-day running average. Then we'll hit select, and then I'm going to put in a slash, and then we'll go in and we'll add in the next one. And we'll do the same thing. We're just going to add in the next indicator and then give it the same time series to make sure that they match up. 7-day running average. And because it's a percentage, I'm going to go ahead and get multiplied by 100 there at the end. And of course, we want to publish this on the Analytics Hub, definitely. And then we also want to make sure that we're going to right click and save, so we can then also add in our assignment group breakdown to the formula indicator as well. We'll go ahead and do that there. And then the next thing that we need to do, because if you notice, we didn't actually collect our data for our second indicator that we created. So we need to go back and we need to do that. So our formula indicator is it's complete. It's done. It's there. So now let's go actually collect some data so we can make sure that we see something when we go to the Analytics Hub to look at this data. So again, just look for data collection. And what we'll do is we'll actually add it to that same job that I had already created. And I'll just search for it. Obviously, I had the updated column in there. I could have clicked on that and it would have been the latest one. But there it is. We'll go down to indicators, and then we will add in the new indicator that we had created, the automated indicator that's inside of our formula. And there it is. We'll move it over, and then we're going to run the job again to make sure that we can get some data. So we'll execute that. And then, of course, we'll go down and we will refresh that job log to make sure that we're getting data. So it has started collecting and it is finished. So now we know that we actually have data that we can actually look at. So let's validate this and make sure that we're going to get something. So again, we're going to go back to the Analytics Hub, and this time we're going to search for our formula indicator. So again, you can just search right over there. So actually, I searched for the one of the indicators that was inside the formula indicator. So this, I may have to actually do a live real quick because I just noticed that I didn't do the formula. So let's do that real quick. Percentage of resolution. There we go. Better. Okay. Now we can actually see the data. So here are points in time when these numbers are extremely high. Again, it's based on the data that you have into your instance, but these are times when the resolutions are very high based on them not being assigned. So, you can look at this, and again, your numbers based on real data would probably look much better. So just keep that in mind when you're actually looking at it. So again, the percentage of resolution time that incidents are not assigned, you can go in there and again, you can click into that data and, see the records or whatnot for any of that stuff. So again, I apologize about that. There we go. So we was able to see it. So in conclusion, after the little speed bump hiccup right there, metrics are there and they're good for you if you need to look at duration of times based on when something is changing. But again, don't forget that SLAs are there as well, especially if you want to look at that duration of time as it relates to some sort of standard or agreement or whatnot that you're trying to make sure that someone is adhering to. SLAs is where you should do that. The metrics are there for you so you can see whenever there's some things that are maybe going on inside of the process and you actually want to see the amount of time that it takes. So just keep that in mind. Here are some ServiceNow docs that are out there that is all the information that we have right inside of the demo. There's some community documents which are actually here, and I didn't change that name there, community docs that you can use. And again, it is the existing Performance Analytics Academy that David did, like I said, which is understanding the SLA and metric breakdowns. And of course, there's some labs out there that you can use as well. So a lot of information. Hopefully you were able to track through all of that creation that we did there, but some really good stuff that you can probably use today if you're not already using these, or it may stimulate ideas for you to maybe change or create some new things that you maybe haven't looked at before. So with that, questions, and I think questions have been coming in.
Yeah, we got lots of questions for you. So let's they group into a couple areas. So we'll go through it. The first one, when you were talking about the indicator source conditions,
yep.
You had started more than 0 hours before resolved.
Right.
Can you talk about why that's important?
Well, first of all, probably someone is thinking, well, how can a started happen after resolved, right? And basically, we're looking at the start time itself of whenever the instance itself was created for the definition. So that means that if the resolved already happened, then I want to make sure that I'm looking at any of those ones that were prior to that. So a start date of when the actual instance, the metric instance itself was created is anything prior to if there's a date that's on the resolved itself. Hopefully that makes sense and that answers your question. And Adam, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Well, I think it's correct, but basically we want to ignore things that we know are bogus. So somebody changed the assignment group after somebody retroactively went through and change the assignment group, the metric will still fire, but I don't care. Once the incident's done, very similar to why we have the script, the script logic that says if something ended or wasn't marked resolved before the end date, we're putting in some sanity to make sure that we just don't have data that will throw our metrics way off, that it's not meaningful. So just be careful about that in general when you go through. If you run into something where you shouldn't, created, you can't change effectively, but you can edit an incident after it's closed. Do you care? If you ever found an incident that had some data that was screwed up from some manual edit or a script where the end date was before the close date was before the start date, I want to ignore those. And there are cases where I might want to ignore things that open and close within a minute of each other, because that's going to bring down my averages quite a bit, but it's some automated process that's doing it. Right. So it's really important to be looking at the data and scrutinizing it to go click on show records and go, yeah, these are things I want. These make sense. Make sure you're testing your analytics out with the records that are right there. Okay. Speaking of that one, another one that came up, when using formula indicators, does it eliminate the ability to view records when drilling down into a particular metric? Do you want to address that one?
We can probably go, unless you want me to show it directly. I guess of course we can try it, unless we don't want the wrong thing to happen. You should be able to see the records.
Well, it's only when you drill into the base records. So the formulas, you'll see on the formula indicator, there's not a show records button, because ostensibly we don't know what you want to see.
Right.
I believe there's an idea in the idea portal about, well, just show me both. It's certainly something that comes up, but today when you use a formula, you don't see the records, and it's much more of a design issue than anything else, because you have to figure out which ones you want to have. And something, if you had the idea that I had the percent of critical incidents open today, well, do you want to see the critical incidents, or do you want to see all the incidents open today? Which records do we show? So it gets a little weird logic wise. And so today, for formula indicators, you can't see it, but if you go into the base indicators, then you will be able to see that. And there's some improvements in that in Quebec that are coming up, but today, generally, if you see the formula, you're not going to get to just see the records.
Yeah, and I think I didn't hear that in the correct context. I was thinking they were saying, would I still be able to get to the records, the underlying records that makes up the formula, which obviously you can, just not right there. So yeah.
Right. You got to do a little bit of digging, but you'll get there. Okay. There's one question that's a bit of a no. Now I'm going to chime in on this about metrics can be very useful, but be aware they create a lot of data. That's a good thing to acknowledge. So metrics fire whenever that field is updated. They actually fire on every updated task to see if they're going to get processed. But don't throw metrics in for things you don't care about. Out of the box, we see things like assignment group. That does, that always matters. Assignment group always matters, but don't put a metrics on everything for any reason. Make sure it's something you want to have. And one thing that's really valuable too with the metrics, and Thomas, I don't know if you want to bring up the metrics form. One of the things, an extra bonus, right? We were focusing on the analytics of it, which is really important. But in terms of user experience, metrics, go to the metric definition form. You can add the metrics timeline, and you didn't show the metrics timeline, did you?
No, I didn't.
No. So if you go into, it's just definitions.
Yeah. I forgot to put the S there.
And go into incident state duration. Is a good one. Number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry. Number 3.
So there is an option about timeline, and can you go ahead and check the timeline box? I don't know what this one's going to show us, but hey, let's do live demos. Timeline at the top, and click update, and then go into one of the metrics, go into one of the incidents that was there.
Let me go back into it.
So this is a freebie. If you check the box, it shows up. If you don't, it doesn't. Go to one of the records, the incidents itself, like incident number 4.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's fine. And I will add into this. We did Thomas did an office hours before. We talked about some relationships and adding related lists. Metrics can be added to your incident related list as well with a system relationship. But because we checked the box for show this on the timeline, go up to metrics timeline. And what this does is it will actually show you in this graphical form for this incident who it was assigned to and how long that person had it. How long was it in this state and how long that person had it. Now, this is a very interesting one from some kind of bogus test data because it has empty create time to resolution for so long. But really interesting things that users can see, right? And I know it comes up that some managers really want to understand who had this incident for so long, right? I had a problem. What's going on? And the added benefit with metrics is I can see that. Not all metrics I want to show, so that's why there's the option to show on timeline or not. But it's an added benefit that's in there. And then we can add analytics on that as well. So sorry for that duration, but I wanted already to bring that up because it's a really nice feature to have and show. All of it, though, is it is creating lots of data. Performance analytics scores are cleaned up regularly. You set a retention. The default's generally 2 years, but it depends on the indicator source. Metrics don't have a retention setting out of the box that I'm aware of, at least. So you may want to put one in, you may not. But just be cognizant that you're adding a lot of data. The data by itself is okay, but it can start to be a large source of large amount of data, which then we have to worry about somewhere. Okay, another one came in, and it's just about a couple of them in here about SLAs, about business time and SLA breakdowns, and why do I use one or not the other? And the answer is pretty much the same. If you need business time is scary. It scares me because for me, in my life experience, Thomas is on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. So business time is different for us, or is it not different? Is it the assigned to? Is it the caller? What ServiceNow is based on the West Coast, so is it always Pacific time? All these things are things you have to handle. The way I like to handle them is SLA breakdowns. SLAs handle time zones really well. You configure. You just simply go, I want it based off of the caller's time zone. I want it based off of the CI's time zone. I want it based off of the assigned to's time zone. I can do those things. I can pause. I can handle holidays. All that stuff I can do in SLAs. So if I can use an SLA breakdown, which only works on assignment group and assigned to, I want to use SLA breakdowns predominantly because they do business time so well, and resets and pauses, holidays, all that stuff. So if I'm doing assignment group or assigned to, I'm going to use an SLA breakdown and configure an SLA. If it's not that, it's state, it's priority, then I have to use metrics. And generally, I'm going to default to using calendar time because that's what metrics do. You can configure them. You can use a scripted indicator. You can make, it's a scripted metric, and you can do calendar time, business calendar time. It just gets to be complicated because you now have to tweak everything. There's an API class, Glide schedules, I think. So you have to define your schedule just like you would for an SLA. You can use the same one, but you have to do some scripting to make it work and calculate the start time and end time. I think metrics actually does have a business calendar field or business time field, but it's not populated by default because you have to calculate it. So if you need to do it, you can. I just generally don't. And if I need to, I'm lazy. And if I want to do business time, it's almost always going to be an assignment group and assigned to. And in that case, I'm going to use SLA breakdowns. So hopefully that addresses your questions about when do I use SLA breakdowns and when do I use metrics. And again, if I can use breakdowns, I use the SLA breakdowns. Otherwise, I'm going to use metrics as a fallback. Metrics have been around near dawn of time. They've been around for like 15 years. SLA breakdowns were introduced in Istanbul, I think. So a long time, but metrics predate them by quite some time. That's why they're there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So another one came in, Thomas, for you. So talk about metrics and the examples we have. Can we implement a metric for on hold duration? So I want to understand the time spent on hold per assignment group.
Okay, so and that is a field in the incident table.
So if I'm on the when I'm in the on hold state.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a state. So as long as it is a state, then yes, you can track that. You can, and when you use the state of the incident itself, it's going to track, and it's going to tell you all those states. So when it goes from one to the next to the next to the next, it's going to give you that time, that duration of each one of those states. So you would just need to find for the one for on hold, and like Adam said, if you were using the metric timeline, you'd be able to see that as well. But you can absolutely know how long an assignment group is or an incident is on hold or whatnot. Absolutely. It's another state.
I'm going to add one note to that. So generally what we see is just states and duration states. So how long an incident's on hold. When you add in per assignment group, metrics are done field at a time. So I can do how long does this assignment group have it and how long is it on hold, but not how long is it on hold per assignment group, with the really simple duration metric. So when I do a duration metric, you just pick the field and you get it. So that's what most of ours are. They're really simple. If you actually need the per assignment group on hold, then you would need to script it. So it's very, very achievable. But you would do a duration. Well, you would just have to do it on both, because one of the things you have to be careful about is that it wouldn't be contiguous. So there's always a state, right? An incident must be in a state. It must have a priority. It must have an assignment group, even if that's empty. And when one stops, the other one starts. But if you're doing on hold per assignment group, that's not true, right? Because if it changes assignment groups, there's a new one. If it's still on hold, but if it goes from on hold to active, then there's actually just no time. So you need to handle that in a script, but the metrics system will certainly work for it. Performance analytics will still work for it. All the labs, everything we went through will work, but you are going to need a scripted metric to be a little bit smarter to know I'm tracking assignment group, but this is only time that it's on hold, and changing assignment group changes it, as well as coming on hold or coming off of on hold. Okay.
That's why you're here to back me up, Adam.
Yeah, I read it. Well, I read it wrong the first time. It's when you want to do the both. Again, metrics are based on one field. If you are looking out of the box examples, SDLC and Sprint stuff does some really great examples for scripted metrics. Some very advanced stuff that I can barely understand. But if you have a question like how would I write this scripted metric, that's a great question for the community. We have lots of bright people on the phone today, and even more on the community. So if you're not getting what you want, throw it out there. I'm trying this script. Am I getting what I want? But what's awesome is that once you have that working, everything else works the same. Performance analytics is going to layer on it, regardless if it's a scripted metric or a duration metric. I got another easy one, so I'm gonna throw this out there about count distinct. Can you please explain how count distinct on a dot walk on how to do a count distinct on a dot walk field? And there's a question about CIs. We covered this one. You're actually going to use a script, and we have I believe the office hours or the academy was on descripting performance analytics. That's actually a case where you use a script. And as we come through, if you've heard me talk before, I hate scripts. I'd never want to use a script. Many reasons. Performance can be a problem. I can easily write a bad script. I can make a typo in a script. I can't make a typo when I'm just selecting something from a choice list. But when we look at the descripting and removing scripts from performance analytics, the two valid scripts that I'm okay with are doing the one for account distinct. So that there's an example in there of exactly how you do it. And that's fine to use as a scripted indicator. And then what Thomas showed for the metrics for that performance analytics script, where we're using score start. If I'm using score start or score end, that is why we have scripts. And as my plug, because I'm going to take it, if I'm not using score start or score end, and it's not a dot walk field where I'm doing that, you probably don't want to use a script. I probably can achieve it with a database view or something else. But what we use today is absolutely the right use of a performance analytics script, and then dog walking fields to get account distinct is acceptable as well. All right, Thomas, if you want to scan through what else works through, I'm gonna one of the questions came in about lots of questions. How many breakdowns can we put in? Or what's the recommended number for that? And I'm going to show everybody how we get into that.
Okay. Are you going to take the screen over?
I am going to take the screen over. So I will steal it from you.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened to that question, but we're going to answer it. When we do talk about breakdowns and adding the new breakdowns, if you add more than 10, the UI will yell at you. It will give you a warning saying you shouldn't put more than 10. That's fine. It's a reasonable number. But what we're actually looking for is not the number of breakdowns, but the number of elements in those breakdowns, the number of scores we're going to collect. And when we get into it, this indicator has 4 breakdowns. It's fine. It's going to be fine. I'm not going to be worried about it. But I could also have 20 and I could be okay. And the way that I'm going to look to go, am I okay or not? It has to do with the number of elements. So if I look at these, there's only so many priorities. There's only so many categories. They're fine. Companies I don't know how many they're going to be. And assignment groups, there could be a lot of assignment groups. If I added assign to, that's a lot. If I had caller, lots of variety in caller. Those worry me. These ones don't. And the way I look is, do I actually need to be worried or not? I go into manage breakdowns. So you can edit the M to M here, and that's fine. But manage breakdowns, nice little UI that was added a couple of releases ago. So I can actually just drag and drop what's available, what's mapped, what's not mapped. It's very similar to the edit, but a little bit nicer. And what's really key here is the configure the breakdown matrix button down here. So I went, again, from indicator. I'm looking at any indicator is going to have this. I'm going to click on manage breakdowns. I believe that's only going to show up if I have the matrix, but I could be wrong there. But we're going to look on the breakdown. So I have these 4 selected. And what it tells me is how many values are in each of these. So I have 243 assignment groups, 5 categories, 182 companies, and 5 priorities. And over here, I can see lots of 5s and 4s, and they're all fine. But when I click configure breakdowns, what I'm able to do is I get this matrix that shows me all the priority, assignment group, possible combinations. You will not necessarily get all of these, but they're the possibilities. And when I look at this, what I need to get is not the 10 breakdowns, but I need to stay under. The limit is right around 1 million. You can only collect 1 million scores at a time. That's a big number. So I actually don't like being around there. I want to be closer in the 20,000, 100,000. Again, it's possibilities, so you won't see them all, but I want to still manage that. So here I have 44,000 possible combinations between company and assignment group. That's high. I actually am not going to get that many. So I'm okay with this, but I can also come in here and just click on this. And now I'm excluding that. That just added a breakdown exclusion. And now this number is fine. And what this allows me to do, if I come in here, if I picked in like assign to, I'm going to grab it the right way. I'm going to move assign to over here. And now, I don't know if you saw this, but my breakdown matrix went from 44,000 to 315,000. Huge number. I'm a little uncomfortable with that. Performance is going to be an issue because it's got to write those, and I don't really need it. So one of the things I might do is just go, well, I don't need assign to an assignment group because those are inherent. I can do a breakdown relation for it. So I turn that off. And now that number goes down quite a bit. And I'm not going to get assigned to in company because I don't care. I do want assigned to in category. I want assigned to in priority. I want priority in assignment group, but I just don't need to have those certain permutations. And now I went from, we went up from 44,000 to 300,000. Now I'm at 11,000. I'm perfectly happy with these numbers. It's a very much of a distraction from where we're going from, but when you're adding breakdowns, that's the number I want to look at. And I want to keep this number manageable. I don't actually care how many breakdowns I have on my indicator. I care about how many permutations are possible. So even if we permutated through everything, I'm still only going to have 11,435 scores. That's 36 because I have global. Okay, so that was my distraction in that. So Thomas, you have a chance to scan some more of the questions, and what's the next one to answer?
Yeah, I actually had answered one directly. I'm trying to find the ones that are directly related to the office hours. There is one, and I don't know that we would have enough time to actually do it, but can you show how to apply a target on a metric at both the aggregated view in the Analytics Hub and to an individual breakdown itself? But again, I don't know that 3 minutes is going to allow us enough time to get into that.
We did talk. We had a session on targets, right? Targets are whether I'm doing once I'm in Analytics Hub, I can set a target, and it doesn't matter if it's a formula. It doesn't matter if it's automated. It doesn't matter if it's external. It doesn't matter where it came from. That it's all the same, right? Are there any differences to be aware of?
No, I mean, he didn't list anything out. So, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, once you've created everything, and if you're using a metric within your indicator itself, and once you're in the Analytics Hub, you can set targets on that. So it should be able to do the same thing. And hopefully that's what Matt is asking, unless he's tried that and it has not worked. And if that's the case, then Matt, ask a question in the community, and you can tag me or add him in it, and we'll look to see if there's something else going on there.
Great. And a couple other ones, some other random ones that come through, are not as related ones about widget security. So widget security, great question. Widget security today is if you can add a widget, you can add if you can add a PA widget, you can add all the PA widgets. And once you can see a dashboard, you can see all the dashboard. There's going to be some changes in there that you're going to be able to opt into coming in future releases, possibly very, very soon future releases. You're going to start seeing announcements. Well, I take it back. The docs are already there for Quebec. So if you're interested, today it is what it is. And I don't think it's going to get you exactly what you want without some customization. But in Quebec, we're going to see some security changes, which you can see in the release notes. If you really want to put us on our toes, go look at the release notes for Quebec, and you can ask us about some of that stuff in future office hours. We will be doing some office hours covering those features after Quebec officially launches, I think March 15th, in the middle of March. So we're absolutely going to be covering that stuff. But there are some security enhancements, which you can see in the release notes now.
And we got about a minute, Adam. So I don't know if you want to do the wrap up.
I think we'll go ahead and wrap that up. We have the other questions. We'll see if we can get back to you on those. But go ahead and submit those or ask those in the community as well. A lot of those stuff we should be able to help you with. And just to wrap up where we are at, thanks Thomas for the intro into metrics and applying PA on there. Super helpful. I saw lots of other comments about how people finding this useful for them. As we come through, if you have any more questions or we didn't get a chance to answer it, please post it in the community. There's some great guidelines about how we can help answer it. So you can get a quick answer from us or from other customers and partners that are active in the community. This session is going to get posted. Again, we'll post the future sessions, the outline for the next few sessions out there, and you can access some of those. We referenced them as we were going, some of the really valuable ones. And if you have a question, you have something you'd like us to talk about, please click on the link to the office hour suggestions and post those so we can prepare some office hours at the PA Academies for you. And until we're there, ask your questions in the community. Again, screenshots are very, very helpful. The more you explain, the better answer you're going to get. Catch up on the previous the Performance Analytics Academy and office hour sessions. Those are all there for you. If you have an idea, if you're not getting what you want, right, you have the answer and you're not happy with it, please submit the idea in the idea portal. So as we're working on future releases and enhancements, we're addressing what you really want them to do, and take some training. Lots of great stuff in Now Learning. And I always encourage you, if you've exhausted all the performance analytics training that's out there, the reporting training, expand out to predictive intelligence, to virtual agent, to the ServiceNow fundamentals. So much great stuff out there for you. Take advantage of that. And then if you haven't done the knowledge labs, take those as well. Thank you very much for your time for joining us. Thank you, Thomas, for a great presentation. And we will see you in 2 weeks.